So I'm here in Paint. I'm trying something new, a new segment. This is going to be called. Oh God, that's too far. Help the Unpack. I don't know why I didn't just type that. All right, so this is going to be a little segment where I talk about a topic. I talk about a topic, sort of like a podcast, but not quite. So here's what's going on. So recently, let me get my pen ready, if you will. So recently, I've been playing Rogue Legacy 2. It's a pretty fun game. I'm enjoying it. It's easy to, like, I don't know, complain about Rogue Legacy. A lot of people are upset after, like, it kind of, I don't know, a lot of people that I've seen think that Rogue Legacy invented the term roguelike. And I know a lot of roguelike traditionalists, the, like, Berlin interpretators, or if you will, um a lot of them, like, get upset about that. Rogue Legacy definitely was one that, like, focused on meta progression, where, like, you would get gold and then you'd spend the gold at the big old castle thing, and you could, like, buff your character's HP or their strength or their magic or something, stuff like that. Um, but, like, I don't know, it's all right. I think Rogue Legacy 2. So, like, I don't remember much about Rogue Legacy 1's gameplay, but Rogue Legacy 2, I'm enjoying a lot, partially because of the platforming, but granted that platforming is basically the same as Hollow Knight. So, like, you have like your air dashes that go wee wee wee. You have a double jump. You have a, like, pogo attack that you can use to bounce off things, and then that lets you refresh your air dash for more air dash. And it's pretty fluid. It lets you, like, cancel animations a lot, which gives it this really nice feeling of control. And the different classes, I think, help with that because each of them play a little differently. A lot of the new ones are really cool, like the gunslinger. It has a gun, and you have to shoot the gun, and then you have to reload. But they're better at aiming than the wizard, and they're faster projectile speed than the bowman. But the bowman doesn't have to reload, so it's like this whole balance thing. Anyways, so I've also been playing Isaac, and Isaac is kind of also it has meta progression, but, like, the meta progression in Isaac is kind of different. Looks like a Roblox character. Uh, so here's the thing I'm getting at. So, like, in roguelikes, there's typically, like, there's either no meta progression. Here, I'm gonna do this in, like, a scale. There's, like, zero meta progression. This is, like, Rogue itself, NetHack. This is the Berlin interpretation purist one. Then you have, like, full-on meta progression, which is Rogue Legacy. It's kind of funny that they're kind of at opposites. Uh, I think Rogue Legacy 2 is a great example as well because, like, you directly unlock new abilities in areas like a Metroidvania. Um, and you fight bosses to unlock new areas. So in a lot of ways, it strays even further than from what I remember of Rogue Legacy 1, at least. Again, it's been a while. But, so, like, on this sort of side, you also have something like Spelunky, which has very minor... Here, there's a little explorer hat, a little whip. Uh, it has a very minor meta progression. It has, like, the shortcuts, but that's about it. You have something like Gungeon, where Gungeon is, like, it's mostly horizontal progression, and the difference, I think, is that vertical is things that are permanent changes to your character, like stat upgrades, where when you get vertical progression, the progression persists over every run, but like it also means that you can't undo that progression. So think of it like this. If I were to play Slay the Spire, you know, and I've got my hand of cool cards and everything, and I were to die, theoretically, like as in if you were to run infinite games of Slay the Spire, you would get that same hand. It's very unlikely. And even when you unlock more cards, like if you get a class to another level and you unlock more cards that way, you still have a good, like not a good chance, but you still have a chance of getting the exact same run you did before. Again, it would take like either infinite time or just the same seed, but that experience you had can't be undone, or like it's not permanently gone. I don't know why I'm making this look like a cube. Whereas like with Rogue Legacy, if you boost your attack damage, then you can't do the run you just did beforehand, because like you literally have higher stats than before. Even if those stats don't make a substantial difference, I think that difference is what kind of gets people. Um so in the same vein, I'd put Dead Cells over here. Just gonna make a little fire because the Dead Cells has no head. And with Dead Cells, you unlock new abilities permanently in a Metroidvania style, though that's kind of not a huge deal, and it's more used for on-ramping, with like you need new abilities to unlock alternate pathways, but I think that's more to make sure the player is like acclimated to the game systems before they go those directions. But you also increase the chance of getting rare items, which is a permanent increase, even if the items you unlock don't have a chance of appearing and you can only get the base items. Their rarity could still be higher. Whereas Gungeon, you unlock new items and stuff, but like most of them aren't going to appear, and it's not like you unlock a permanent boost to those items. There are permanent changes. Gungeon also has shortcuts. It has the bullet that can kill the past. It has like unlocks like that, but a lot of things can be done in like the first run. Um, Isaac is actually, I think, a little different but the same, because Isaac has like, those are supposed to be tears. It doesn't look like tears though. Isaac has like the that looks worse, but it also looks like delirium, so that's fine. Isaac has like bosses and levels that you have to beat the previous level multiple, like you can't fight Heart until you beat Mom a certain amount of times, and then you can't unlock uh like or you can't unlock Cathedral or Sheol until you beat Heart a certain amount of times, and then you can't unlock the next tier until you've done something else. So like it has these world progression that's sort of a vertical style, and then it has the horizontal progression of like getting different unlocks that can appear, but it's not as severe as something like Dead Cells, I think. So basically getting back to Rogue Legacy or Rogue Legacy 2, I think like Rogue Legacy, it's kind of hard to call it just a roguelike or a roguelite, because so much of it feels more like a Metroidvania in that the unlocking new abilities and new areas and exploring further is so prominent. It reminds me of Symphony of the Night, because in Symphony of the Night, I'm even going to try to draw Alucard. So here's him with his cape doing that. He's got a sword. Maybe he's got a shield and he's like backdashing. He's going like woo 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 woo. But so in Symphony of the Night, you know, you can buy weapons. You kill enemies to get like money, and then there's a little shopkeep, and he's like, they call me Shaft. Would you like to buy a sword? And you can be like, hell yeah, I want to buy a sword. That looks like a spear, but I'll take it. And so like you're using money to improve your stats that way. Rogue Legacy kind of feels like the same thing, that like you can grind money to improve your stats to go further, or you could just try to play well to go further. Now, it does have the proc gen levels where Symphony of the Night doesn't, but I think in spirit it's a little different. And I think so when talking about roguelikes, the scary word rogue lie, and then you have K/T E. When talking about roguelikes and roguelites, roguelies, um there's like proc gen is kind of a typical theme, I guess. But I think I want to, when I at least talk about these things, I want to start trying to examine the way they use proc gen and whether or not that's the focus. Because while Rogue Legacy uses proc gen like levels and stuff, it feels like that's not the point of the game of like adapting to a random world. It feels more like the point of the game is exploring and finding the bosses and then fighting them and then getting new upgrades. Whereas like Isaac or Slay the Spire or Gungeon or Spelunky, those are more about each run being completely different than the last. And I don't know if that difference is because of the vertical progression in Rogue Legacy, or if the vertical progression in Rogue Legacy is kind of, if it's kind of like, I don't know, excused by the focus on non-roguish things. Like, I think Rogue Legacy, like the fact that you can lock the castle so it doesn't like randomize also contributes to this feeling that it's not as much about the arcade style, how far can you get in this run. Um and I mean, like, there are bosses that you fight and then you permanently can't fight them again. I think Rogue Legacy just isn't a roguelite at that point. I don't know what I'm drawing here. And so yeah, the conclusion is that Rogue Legacy is not a roguelike, or if it is, then it's a different type of roguelike, and roguelike is just a term that is poorly defined, and I don't mean definitively, I mean like colloquially, as a people speaking language that evolves. Rogue Legacy or roguelike is a term that we haven't really agreed upon. And yes, I know there's an actual definition of roguelike in terms of the Berlin interpretation, but like maybe like 40% of people who talk about roguelites know about that. So, yeah. I think the spectrum of rogue to not rogue, rogue to legacy, is more interesting to me than the Berlin interpretation. Because if you think about it in terms of like isolated runs versus non isolated runs with some continuous aspects between them, that I think unveils a lot more about the game than just is it proc gen, is it permadeath. Like, those are kind of assumed right now. So yeah, that's it for the unpack. I hope that was interesting. I'm gonna upload that as a separate. Oh, I was gonna record that. I forgot to record that. Okay, I'll highlight it later. I'm going to upload that to YouTube.